Well, today we kick off a new sermon series, and it's really going to be dealing with family. How many of you have families, right? And we all understand that families are different, aren't they? I mean, you can't live with them, you can't live without them type thing. We all have family like that. But we are doing a sermon series called Family Feels. Family Feels. And I think it's going to be a pivotal series for us. We're going to be in this for the next 3 weeks. And today we're going to be talking about me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. A couple days ago, I was taken back in time by a memories post from my good old friends, well, you know them, Facebook. They told me that they cared about me and that they cared about my memories. So I checked on this post because I really do believe that they care about me as a person, right? This memory, it had to have been about 7 to 8 years ago as I was watching this. In fact, I remember the day. It was February 5th, 2014. And I couldn't help but to keep hitting the replay button time and time and time and time and time again. It was like I was almost going back in time. I could almost sense exactly what was happening. It was like I was there. That day, I remember it was snowing. It was snowing heavily, sort of like this morning was. I remember it. Snow covered the entire yard as I looked out our front door, and I could see my wife and my son out there as they were playing in the snow, just like a lot of us have done. Now, I was inside, you're wondering, because I don't like to be cold, so they can have all of that. But I remember that they had the sled that my dad had just bought them. It was this bright orange sled, and it popped on the video, and you could see it. I remember even him giving it to my son at this age. And then the video, it turns around, and there is my son, Gavin, and he is complete with the rubber yellow boots that he just had to wear everywhere. He is bundled up from head to toe and everything, but the one thing that kept drawing my attention was these yellow, bright yellow rubber boots. And I thought, oh man, I remember this. I remember those stupid things because he would wear them into Walmart when it's 95 degrees out because he just loved these rubber yellow boots. And underneath this bundled up child comes the most heartwarming statement, even in video, that still to this day I remember him saying it. His mom is pulling him in this snow slowly, and this child looks up and he says, "You make me happy. You make me happy." And her little mama heart just melts. I see it and I'm sitting there and it's like I'm melting at the same time. And I stay on that post for a while and I just play it a few more times before I snap back into the present reality that I'm in. To be honest, it was a little hard to leave that moment. Those types of moments, you see, if you're a parent, you understand they don't happen as much as they used to. Those little statements that melt your heart, they don't happen the same way because there's a little bit of difference to them. You see, it reminds me of the harsh reality of time, that no matter how much you try, it never slows down. They warned me, don't blink. And here we are. 7 to 8 years later, and my son is 11 years old, going 45. And it just keeps going. I can't stop it. I've tried. But it's there. There is weirdly in that memory, in that moment, a little bit of joy and a little bit of ache that is mixed together, and I feel it deep in my bones because my son didn't know it at the time, but it is something that his mom and I strive for as best we can to bring him as much happiness while he is in our home as we possibly can. How many of you parents, that's your desire too? We understand it. It's what we're all trying to do. Now, do we always get it right? No. But we try. It left me in my feels. It left me in my feels. And before you know it, memories started to flood my mind, not just this one, but all kind of other ones. And I was just kind of there in the moment. But like the one when I held my child in my arms for the first time, I'll never forget that. It was this amazing thing, and if you've been there, you know exactly how that feels. There's something terrifying and beautiful about it at the same time. And I remember just holding him in my arms and looking down as his eyes could barely stay open. And I remember just him being so small and so fragile, and me just sitting there going, I pray to God I don't drop him, because he was that fragile. And then I remember thinking to myself and just kind of looking up and saying, God, please help me not to screw up this kid. Help me not to screw up this kid. Any of you ever thought that way too, prayed that way? Don't you heathens out there look at me in judgmentalism. But I remember saying that prayer because I remember thinking that am I even ready for this? Because I'm still feel like a kid myself in that moment. And as I held my son in my arms and I pray, Lord, help me not to screw him up. And ironically, here he is at 11 years old. And you know what I'm still praying? Lord, help me not to screw him up. Now you may be going, that's a great prayer for a pastor. Well, why do I say that prayer? And that may be what you're thinking. I say that prayer because I realize that it is so easy to lose something that you value, like a child, like a marriage, like a family relationship, or even a dream that you've had in your heart for years. I see people grapple with this reality every single day, and I believe that wise parents, they acknowledge that even in the best of families, things can and do go wrong, and sometimes much quicker than you could ever have expected. You see, what I found interesting is that research shows that most people still believe that the family is an important and essential institution. Barna Group, a research group, states this, that family is ranked by American adults as more central to their identity than any other surveyed factor. And those surveyed factors are being an American, their faith, their ethnicity. It actually goes as far as to say that more than 6 in 10, which equals out to being 62%, also say that family plays, listen to this, a significant role in their identity. 62% of Americans say that their family is responsible significantly for their identity. All of us, and what I'm getting at this is all of us are byproducts of what our parents have given us or not given us. And if 62% of Americans believe that family plays a significant role in their identity, then shouldn't we intentionally become more aware of this reality in our family as well? Shouldn't we? And I'm not so sure that the 38% that answered that family didn't play a role in their identity are being completely honest. Because what I actually think and can sympathize with and even maybe empathize with is that I believe that they say this because to them, it's hard to see how an abusive or toxic family upbringing could ever become part of your identity. Because for them, they try so hard not to let it define them in the first place. So why would they want any part of that to define them? But the reality of it is, it does. To some degree, like I said, it affects every single one of us. What they give to us and what they don't give to us somehow becomes an identity conflict or issue in our lives. Some great things, some not so great things. So to them, how can something identify them that broke them or wasn't what they needed from their family? And I see all kind of people in that reality even today. Even as we sit amongst the church and we sit here, a lot of times the church does this job of trying to speak to people that are always together, that are following the Christian way, that never go through things. But the thing about it is statistically, it tells me that in every single church that are meeting today, that at least 48% have been divorced, are single, or remarried. We are all carrying wounds from this thing that we're called family, and we're trying to figure out, God, how do I be the best family member that I can be? What does that look like? I have always been worried about the outside influences negatively impacting my family. I've always been worried about that. How many of you have been worried about that? Always worried about what outside things can happen. I try everything that I can to safeguard my family, try to keep everything out. But you know what I realized? You know what I realized is that I never stopped to ponder if I could be the greatest risk factor to them. It's quiet in here. I never stopped to think that if I, in fact, could be the greatest risk factor to them. Why do I say that? Because you as parents, me as a parent, I am the greatest influence in their life. You will have far greater implications and impact than even the youth pastor that sees them once a week, maybe. They see you all the time. Not only that, they see their teacher probably more than they even see you sometimes. But you, I guarantee you, are having a greater impact even when you feel like you're not. Because the problem for a lot of us that I see, even myself, and if it doesn't speak to any of you, I'm speaking to myself, is that we tend to live our lives through our deficiencies. We tend to live our lives through the things that we lack or perceive that we lack. We live through the things that have happened to us, and whether they be good or whether they be bad, we live through them. We live through the things that we do to ourselves, the things that we choose, the things that bring negative aspects into our life. We live through those realities because many of us may actually be facing ourselves more than anyone or anything else. And that's just the truth. And that is exactly why I continue to ask God for help every single day, because I know how much of a screw up that I personally can be. I am fully aware that I walk with a limp, unfortunately, of my own deficiencies, of my own doing. And I know that if I don't go to someone that can fix it, that I can hand it off unknowingly to my child and to my family. Listen to me. I think we all know that family, man, it can be an absolutely beautiful blessing, can it? And a lot of us, we live in that blessing. I can honestly say that my family was a blessing to me. They still are a family to me. I still go to them. My parents, they hear about everything. I called them last night and talked to them. They hear about everything. Why? Because they have created that reality with me that I can go to them about anything. And they're there. And I try to, what they've handed me, I try to implement into my son's life. I really try to not shy away from having conversations with my son, even sometimes when they're difficult. Because I want him to know that here, when you come to Dad will tell you the truth. He'll be blunt with you and honest with you, but he loves you enough to do that. But he'll never not love you. And I've seen that in my parents. Because the truth is that when we look at this, and when we say something like family can be an absolute blessing, on the other side of it, unfortunately, there are some of us here that understand that it can also be the thing that damages us the most. And I think a lot of us wrestle with why that is true. Why is it that the place that was supposed to be the safest for me has been the most hurtful? Why does something that should provide the greatest sense of identity, healing, and safety sometimes become the source of our greatest wounds, right? Why is that? Well, simple. You know why? Because it involves people. It involves human beings, flawed human beings. It involves you and me. Because wherever people are involved, whenever people are involved, well, let's be honest, you know how that story goes. All you've got to do is look at where people are involved and you can see what becomes of that. It's not always great. It's not always good. We realize in it that we need something greater even when it comes to families. We need something that's beyond it. In fact, this reality that we're talking about today goes all the way back to the beginning in a garden named Eden. We're told in Genesis 1:1, and it says this, that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then we are told in Genesis 2:7 that after God had created everything, He finally decides to form the man from the dust of the ground. God stoops down and plays in the dirt, and then He creates mankind, and He breathes the breath of life into the man's nostrils, and this man that He breathed life in becomes a living person. It is the intimacy that God wants with us. It is the connection that God has with us. It is the divine breath that is breathed into each one of us. They even go as far as to say this, that as long as you can breathe, you're actually saying the name of God. And when you can no longer say the name of God is when He takes back what was given. It is this powerful imagery that everything that you do of life is given to you by the one that created you. And He breathes life into it all and every single one of us so that way we can become a living person. And He tells this created being to take care of the garden and keep watch over it. What you realize is that God Himself gives him authority, He gives him identity, and He gives him purpose. But He also warns him upon doing this that you may freely eat the fruit of the tree in the garden. And then in 17 He says, except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it comes with this warning. Because if you eat its fruit, you are sure to die. And after giving this warning, God sees something interesting. And it's this, and it's found in verse 18. And He says this, then the Lord said, it is not good for the man to be alone. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because a lot of us, we think it would be better off if we were alone. Because at least if we were alone, we wouldn't deal with the pain. At least if we were alone, we wouldn't have to deal with being hurt or abused. At least if we were alone. But God sees something and He says, it's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for man to be alone. And so God says, I will make a helper who is just right for him. And so we see that God creates a helpmate for Adam because God is concerned with the damage that loneliness can do to his soul. And if you don't believe me, this, in fact, is the only time out of the whole creation story that God says something is not good. It is the only time in the creation process, in the creation story, that God stops to say, no, everything else I've created is good. But this, man being alone, is not good. Is not good. Right? And right there, as He creates woman, we see the start of this thing that you and I know as family. And as you read it through Scripture at first, it's absolutely beautiful. It is perfection personified as what they're telling us. A detail expressed when it says that they both stood before God. They both stood before each other and they were completely naked and felt no shame whatsoever. And I think that statement is what we all long to feel in our families. To be able to stand before one another completely loved unashamed. Unashamed. And then chapter 3 happens of Genesis. And honestly, you know the rest of the story. It goes downhill pretty quick. Everything is lost for a bite of forbidden fruit, isn't it? Everything is forfeited for a bite of forbidden fruit. And the truth is that that's the way that it usually goes, doesn't it? Most of us ruin great things because we are tempted by the forbidden fruit of something that looks better but can absolutely destroy you. That's what we see in this reality. We end up giving up something beautiful for something very suspect. I think sometimes we tend to really over-spiritualize the aspect of this fruit in Scripture because sometimes we want it to be some huge, deep theological understanding. But to me, when I really look at it, the fruit is really about the meaningless and the desire for it. It's really about the meaningless and the desire for it. I say this because ancient Jewish literature focused on the desire for wisdom. We see that in the book of Proverbs, a wisdom literature book that talks about the desire to find wisdom, to need wisdom. It likens it to a woman, of finding wisdom, finding the thing that you need. Because we all struggle with the very same thing in our lives. Reaching for things that look good and wanting what they think they will give us, but being disappointed when our eyes are open to the reality that all it left us with is nothing. It promised us the world, but when we bite into it, our eyes are open to the reality that we have been duped. It's not what the enemy claimed it was. We're left bitter, we're left mad, we're left because I thought this would fulfill me. I thought this would make things better, but it doesn't. It just brings nothing. Nothing but shame as we struggle with how to answer the question that God asks every single one of us in moments like this is, where are you? Where are you? Did it give you what you wanted? Did it place you in a better position than you were? Do you feel better about it? Did you give you everything that you wanted? Was it worth it? Like, where are you? Like, where are you? And I'll be honest, that's a frustrating question. Especially when I don't really know how to answer this, because if we're honest, a lot of times we find ourselves in situations and places we don't want to be. This isn't where I thought I would be. This isn't how I thought it would go. This isn't what I thought that my life would look like at this age. What do I do now? What do I do now? You can kind of understand it, that this is where Adam and Eve are. And as Adam and Eve, they stand before God, the echoes have to be hitting their mind of, if you eat from this tree, you are sure to die. You know it is. They're probably thinking the worst thing. They were probably waiting on the hammer to just drop as they stand completely vulnerable before the very one who created them. And if there's anything that we don't want to be seen as, is vulnerable. Even to this day, we do everything we can to make sure that we've got it all together. It's just sowing fig leaves to fake it for everybody else. But inside, dying. Inside, dying. See, they're standing there and they've heard this, but the problem is they're not dead. At this moment, miraculously, they are still fully alive. But the harsh reality for them that they don't realize, that we can see in hindsight because we can read it, is that it's coming. Death is coming. It's unavoidable. And at a soul level, I would argue that it's already happening to them. They just don't realize it. And sometimes that's the worst place that you can be, is in a place to where it's happening and you don't even realize it. Being in a place to where you are withering away by what you thought you wanted, dying inside, but trying to smile and fake it for everybody else. The soul level, it's already happening. You can see it as they stand there with sewn fig leaves in a vain effort to really try to fix it themselves. Their decision has damaged them as they lose their entire identities. And God delivers the consequences of them trying to find, listen to this, satisfaction in anything other than Him. And I know what you may be thinking. What does any of this have to do? What does this story have to do with family? Adam, I thought we were going to be talking about family. We are. We are actually. It has everything to do with family because their decision has caused hostility in the family. It has caused hostility between families. Even God begins to hand down the judgment, and He tells Eve that pain is sharpened during your pregnancy. He even tells him that there will be marital difficulty in the relationship with control and leadership. It'll cause them to wrestle against one another. And essentially God is telling Adam that because of this, that he's lost his identity. That he's lost his identity. That the very thing that God called him to do in taking care of the ground, God essentially tells him that you will be doing that now. And that land that used to produce so much for you will produce almost nothing. Everything that you banked on, Adam, you have thrown away. And it says this, and this is probably one of the saddest realities that as Adam is standing there, Adam had it all. And God looks at him and He says, all your life will be a struggle. All your life will be a struggle. I don't want to hear that from God. None of us want to hear that from God. That life will be a struggle, but yet here we are and we understand all too well how true that statement is. Their decision to eat this forbidden fruit has not just impacted them, but in fact it has impacted their entire family from generations to come. And then they're banished from Eden. They're banished from perfection. They're banished from the presence of God. They're banished from the place that their heart longs for. And I can't help but wonder if inside of all of us even sitting here today, that there isn't an aspect in our hearts and in our soul that leaves us searching still for our Eden. That we're trying to get back to Eden, get back to the way that it was, to where things were okay. We're still searching for that tree of life. And I think that one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the story is when we see Eve excited that she is having a son. It's one of the greatest moments for her. She's getting ready to have a son. And she is so excited about this because she assumes that by having this son that it'll fix their situation. Think about if I have this son, it'll fix the situation, because she heard what God said to the serpent when God told that serpent in 15, and I will cause hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. She thinks that because it's talking about a son that'll be born and a he that's going to save them, she thinks that this prophecy is about a coming heir to her, and she likens it to Abel, that maybe Abel may be able to save them. But she is absolutely devastated when this son she thought could possibly save them is covered in the blood of his younger brother that he just murdered. Dreams dashed, hope lost. Like, what do I do with this? She is shocked that the thing that she thought would fix it, in fact, made it worse. Sometimes when I read that, Scripture doesn't tell us, but I wonder what went through her mind. Did she look at him and think, he's a monster? And did she blame herself for it? One thing's for sure, she has now experienced physical death like she never has before. But the truth is that she and Adam have been dying for years. It's just now showing up in a more physical way. You see, this is what happens when you live through your deficiencies, when you live through what you lack. And I think it is what the greatest issue that is plaguing our families today is actually. Like Eve and like Adam, we are trying to find the one person that can fix us. We're trying to find the person that can fix me, make me feel better. And so what we have been told to believe in is that we have to look for the mythical one. The mythical one, the one that is just for you. The mythical one that'll make all of your romantic aspirations and dreams come to life. The mythical one of the knight in shining armor that's coming to free you from the hell on earth that you live. And so we have this romanticized idea of what family and marriage would be because we're looking at it through our brokenness and our hurt. And we're saying, I want someone to fix me. And so we live in our deficiencies. We live in our brokenness, and we are desperately looking for someone to save us. And so we put it on other people to do that. We even hear it in romance movies about, you complete me, and it's an awesome, awesome line in a romantic comedy, right? You can complete me, and the women cry, and the men go, oh no. But we hear it all the time, but in the moment when we say it, it's romantic, we mean it in the moment. We buy into it, right? Well, until they no longer complete you. And then they go on. Because they're trying to fix themselves, and they thought that you would do that. And sometimes you do it in reverse ways. You thought that they would fix you. And then when it ends, what happened? And then you realize something weird. I'm more broken than I ever have been. It's what happens when we live and walk in our deficiencies. Some will even have kids, and I'm not trying to down having kids, but some will do this thing to where they think if they just have kids to attempt to fill the void, it may even save their marriage, it may even save how they're feeling. So they have kids to try to fill the void, attempting and thinking that this will complete us. It'll fix what is broken inside of us. And so they have kids, and after all, how can you be unhappy with kids? Kids are a blessing, and they are. I love my kid more than you love your kid, I can just tell. And the truth of it is, it does bring joy. It's an awesome blessing, but let's not sugarcoat this. But it doesn't really fulfill every void in your life. Because your kids were never meant to fix you. Your spouse was never meant to fix you. That was never their job. And when we wrestle with this, we wrestle with the guilt of thought that this would fix everything. That I done it the right way. I done it the way that the church told me to do it, but I'm still just as miserable. What happened? Well, what's going on? I thought by having marriage and God ordained marriage, and I thought that my family, I thought it would all be well, but this looks like a mess. What do I do? I'm just in my feels right now. And what we see in it is the danger of living in a hyper-individualized culture that is always concerned with yourself. We are taught to only care about our own individual happiness. We're only concerned about what it brings to us, what it does for us. Our litmus test is on our own happiness, not the happiness of the unit. If I'm unhappy, sorry, the rest of you just got to deal with it. And as long as you're happy, let's be honest, that's all that matters in a world that is taught that. But this is toxic for family dynamics, especially when it becomes a relationship of me instead of we. And a lot of us are living a hyper-individualized reality within our families that the only person that matters is me. Me. Because the world has told you you're all that matters. And if you're not happy with it, just leave. If you're not happy with it, find something else that makes you happy. If they don't fix you, find someone else to fix you. After all, you only live once, so you might as well be happy. But the problem is, there's so many people doing that, and they're still not happy. Still living through the deficiencies, still living through what they lack, still trying to find identity in people that did not define them or create them. Because families flourish under mutual submission. We do what's best for the family, not what's just best for the individual. Because that's the way that families work. We come together and we work together as a unit. We are a team. It's Team Allen. As I like to call us, Family Force 3. That's us. And we don't, now Rachel would probably disagree, we don't do what just makes Adam happy. Just but we strive to do what brings peace and happiness for us all. And sometimes that looks like me saying, that's okay. I don't have to have it my way, even though Burger King has trained me to know that it should be my way. But even in families, you need a tinge, well, not a tinge, you need the attitude of servanthood. You need the attitude of servanthood. And for so many of us, we would rather be served. We would rather be served. I mean, after all, if we believe in the society aspect of it's all about your happiness, and you're happy when you're served, but everybody else is miserable because you do nothing. It's all about you. And can I tell you something? If you're living your family like that, it's heading in a toxic area, isn't it? 1 Corinthians 13 tells us this. You ready for this? This is one I struggled with this week. Love is not self-seeking. How many of you doing well with that? Love is not self-seeking. But Burger King told me, I've heard my entire life, do what makes you happy. But Paul says, love's not self-seeking. It puts others before. Because if it is self-seeking, you will only bring death, and I want you to listen to this, to your entire family by trying to fix your brokenness by using them. It'll only bring death to your entire family if you are using them as a means to fix what's broken inside of you. Because they were never supposed to be the thing that fixed you. That was never within their power. They were never supposed to be the thing that totally defines you, even though sometimes it does. And that's hard to hear when 62% of the population say that family plays a significant role in their identity. The danger for us all is when our happiness is dependent on human beings, right? Because I know that we are always going to be disappointed. I'm disappointed in myself half the time. But when I put it in other people, they can do the same thing that I do to myself. It doesn't matter if they are family or not. Whenever you put your happiness and your ability to be fixed in the hands of other people, you will leave it every single time disappointed. Because the truth is that they are looking for the exact same thing. They're looking for the same thing you are, for someone to fix them. They have a deep hole in their soul of just trying to be fixed, trying to be okay. Fighting the demons that keep trying to bring them back into things that they shouldn't do every single day. They're just like you. Probably think the same thing. This person will complete me. And then shocked when they don't. Because the truth is that they are looking for the same thing that you are. They're looking for someone who can fix them. They're looking for someone that can heal the trauma that they have, someone who can bring them back to Eden, to where everything was okay, to where everything was perfect. But the problem is, they're broken too. I mean, if you think about it, how do you expect someone broken to fix your brokenness? They can't even deal with their own. They can't even fix themselves, so why would you put it in the hands of someone that can't fix themselves even? It's honestly like the blind leading the blind, right? The blind leading the blind. And what I know is the majority of us, really, as we're here today, and we think about our families, the reason why we're clinging on to the words is because all of us, we want healthy families. We want families that are great. We want families that have good relationships. And unfortunately, I could probably look out here and I could probably ask everybody to raise their hands. How many of you have difficult family relations? And almost probably every single hand would go up. And there's a part of us that we hate that. We don't like that reality. We don't want to live that reality. We wish it would be better. Some of us, maybe we even have strained relationship with our children that we even go like, man, like I just don't understand what happened. What's going on there? And we hate that reality. You see, we all want to provide a safe place for our families, a place that is life-giving. But to be honest with you, you can't do that when you are depending on them to fix what's broken inside of you. It'll never happen. It'll only bring more hurt. And I think that's why I'm drawn to Jesus' teaching. Jesus' teaching calls us to deny ourselves, to pick up our cross and to come follow Him. And it resonates with me so much because I've tried it all my own way and it's never worked. I'm telling you that a family built on the foundation of Jesus, it just changes things. Because family has to be defined by mutual denying of the self. The problem that I see in the story of Adam and Eve is that they never repented that I ever see. You ever read that? They never ever repent for any of it. They never say anything about it. They just kind of take it. They never say to God like, we're sorry. They just stay where they are in their brokenness. They just stay trying to fix themselves, trying to find someone else that can fix them. And the whole time they are damaging their families because they forgot who it was that actually created them. They forgot who created them, who gave them purpose. They forgot who gave them identity. I like what John Piper says, and he says this. He says, God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. And a lot of times, the reason for our struggle is because we are trying to find satisfaction in everything other than God. And especially in our families, when you're building it on anything other than God, it's going to fail miserably. If you're building your life on anything other than God, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Because the truth is that family, it can't save you. It can't fix you. Only Jesus can do that. Only Jesus can do that. See, for a lot of us, we are putting our trust in the wrong thing. We're putting our hope in the wrong thing. We're trying to find things in satisfaction that, I'll be honest with you, it can make sense logically. But you see, the problem is we are trying to be fixed by thinking that other people will be able to do it for us, and it just doesn't happen that way. I don't know about you, but I find myself being tired of eating this meaningless fruit that never brings me anything. I need the bread of life that promises life more abundantly, more than some empty caloried fruit. I need Jesus. And to be honest, you need Jesus. My family needs Jesus. Your family needs Jesus. The entire nation needs Jesus. The world needs Jesus. Because I truly believe that if you want to fix the brokenness in your own life, the only place that I know to go with it is to Jesus. If you want to fix your family, bring them to Jesus. If you want to fix yourself, go to Jesus. Because until we are fully satisfied in Him, everything else, I guarantee you, will only lead to death. And that's just the truth. Daniel, can I have you come and play? And I know that this isn't, a real happy message. I know that you're sitting there thinking like, man, I thought like I was going to get one of those messages that really made me feel good about myself. And it is. I want you to understand that life is difficult. We all walk around with a measure of disappointment and brokenness and failed dreams and failed realities. But I also understand that we all are really throughout this life, we're trying to find something that does fix us. That makes us feel better than what we are. And unfortunately, a lot of times, our attempt to do that falls all on family. I think that's why we have so many broken families. Because we are wrongly putting on them to do what only God can do. If I'm looking for my wife, and we'll be talking about this next week, is the marriage aspect of it, but I wanted to deal with me, myself, and I, because here's the thing. Until you get that right, until you get who you need to fix you, you will be projecting it on every other person. You will damage relationships. You will damage your family. You will damage yourself until you get that the only person that can change you is Jesus. He's the one that provided a way where there seemed to be no way. And until you get that through your head, you will be bringing pain that you don't mean to, but it naturally comes out because pain seeps through what is broken. The reason I call it me, myself, and I is because I'm my own worst enemy. And I know if I don't get it together, if I don't take care of the issues, I don't bring it before Jesus, the thing I worry about is it's not just hurting me. It has hurt my wife. It has hurt my son. And I'm just like you. I don't want that to be the case. Man, I want to live a life that is fully dedicated to Jesus. I want to live life that gives life and is life-giving to everybody that comes around me. But I know that if I live and try to walk in my deficiencies of trying to find other artificial ways to fix my pain and my brokenness, all I'm going to do is bring everybody around me pain. And I don't want that. So today is really a call to surrender. Because if I'm going to be the man that Rachel needs me to be and the father that Gavin needs to be, I have to bring all my junk to Jesus. Because He said, cast your cares upon me, and I will give you rest. I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of the rat race. I'm so tired of trying to put my happiness in the hands of other people and being let down time and time again. I'm so tired of the aspect of trying to just find all of my happiness in my family and then kind of leaving when they don't do everything the way that I think they should do. I realize as I look in the mirror, like, I'm worried about the outside influence. But it may be me. It could be me. And God, help me to change. Help it not to be so. And that only happens by taking that first step of just surrendering before God. Surrendering as a man, surrendering as a woman, surrendering as a child. And saying, God, I want what you want for me. I want what you want from my family. And until we get to that point, you'll never be fixed and you'll never be healed. Because I am convinced, because I've seen it in my own life, that the only thing that brings healing to those kind of things is Jesus. When he talked about that by his stripes, you're healed. And I hold on to that. I hold on to that. Because you know what I long to see? Is a day that my son, outside of my house, is completely in love with Jesus. Because he's seen it mimicked in his parents' life. What about you? Doesn't matter if you have kids. Doesn't matter if you're single. What about you? What are you leaving behind? A trail of brokenness and hurt and pain? Or of life-giving aspects? Because you know who you are, you know whose you are, and you know where to go for your source. There's only one person that created you, so why would you go to anybody else to fix what's broken inside of you when they didn't create you? That's where we're at today. So can we stand? I'm just going to tell you something. Family's difficult, isn't it? And the difficult part of my family is probably me. It's not easy being a pastor's son. It's not easy being a pastor's wife. I fully understand that. God works on me every single day, and I need it. Sometimes he kicks my butt. Sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I'm not always the man that I want to be. But I look here and now and I say, God, I want to be. And that's where it starts. Help me to rely solely on you. And I just want to do something today. If you're hearing this message and that's where you are at, I don't care whether you're a man, woman, child, and maybe you've not thought about it this way, but you just want to submit to what God has for your life. Can we just put up our hands of surrender today and just say, God, I just want whatever it is that you want from me. God, what you're going to do in my life, I want it. God, I don't want to be in the way. God, I'm going to quit trying to find other people that can fix me. I'm going to quit trying to give my healing in the hands of other people that do not have the power to do that. God, today I'm giving it to you. I'm going to quit using my family for my own personal happiness, God, but we're going to seek together after you to bring happiness to us all, Jesus. And today, God, may you help us become the parents, the spouse, the mother, the father, the son, the daughter, aunt, uncle, whatever it is, the people that I love. And may you use me to bring you into the center. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Right on time, right on time. Come on now. That was beautiful. That was an epic moment that we're ending with a crescendo in this place today. But may we walk out of here challenged with what we heard and accepting the challenge to be what we need to for our families. Here's the thing I'll tell you. It's not going to be easy. Even as we leave here going like, yeah, I want that. You'll see in the car. Just tell you that. It's lunchtime. Come on, you know better. But we are striving. And I think God has something amazing for our families and our marriages. And we're going to continue to go after that. We just have to place Jesus at the proper place, and that is the foundation. Everything else will build on him.